just the rights are there for all these different countries. Yeah, I guess it's great. Still need a passport for these various countries, but they're only countries in name only. So the people that were essentially the ruling class, the elites, the black nobility, they're still running the show, but they keep morphing the nation states of Europe into something different. Principalities, nation states that are masquerading as democracies and really socialist, basically socialist societies where the individual has greater access to, public facilities and public, general medical, whatever, but does not encourage things like entrepreneurialism. That's a capitalist model. So now we have the EU, and we have France, we have Germany, blah, 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 blah. You notice how England, Great Britain, has not gotten out of the EU, and they probably won't. They're just going to drag their heels and drag their heels and drag their heels. That's what Theresa May was brought in to do. Theresa May was brought in to put cement galoshes on Brexit and just sink it. They'll have some vote and referendum, and they'll figure out a way to just torpedo that thing. And I say, no, the EU will walk with its hands between its legs, tails between its legs, and we're back. So what's happening with the EU now? What are they doing? What are these elites? The black nobility with their high-powered banking families who actually pose a bit of a threat to them. It's an interesting relationship between the black nobility of Europe and these banking families like the Rothschilds and the Warburgs. The Warburgs and the Goldschmidts, because they became really, really rich. I mean, they helped these rulers get fantastically rich, but at the same time, they became really rich, and now they've been kind of a threat, and they can't get rid of them. And that's one of the reasons why they were all, jazzed about creating Israel. Oh yeah, go over there. Yeah, we'll work with you. Yeah, we'll create that. We'll create that to help you. We'll help you out with that. England will give you that land, even though it doesn't belong. They'll give it to you. Everybody, just go over there. Go on. We'll have a good time. That's our gift to you. Get the fuck out. That didn't happen, did it? No, it didn't. So what's the EU up to now? Well, let's get into the present. Okay, now that they've basically ripped away any kind of nascent nationalism that might have actually been around, still kind of lingering, somebody who's proud to be a Frenchman, proud of their heritage, proud of their food, proud of all these things that theoretically makes them French. I'll never forget, before the EU happened, I was hanging out in a train station at the edge of France, right on the border of France and Italy. And I was talking with this old French guy, and we were looking at the money. We were looking at French money. And I said, I asked him, how do you feel about the EU coming? He got incredibly sad. This guy he knew, even though he lived through this socialist version of France, post-World War II, there was still enough kind of national identity, cultural identity, that he identified with being French. And you just see the look in his face. It was going away. He knew it was going to be different, and it is different. It's drastically different. Because the EU now can mandate who goes to certain countries and why. And the leaders of these countries in Western Europe, whether it's Merkel or Macron, Salvini, Salvini's trying to rock the boat a little bit. That'll be interesting to keep your eye on that guy. So he's the guy that's running, not running, but he's basically trying to get Italy to become more of a nationalist state. He wants Italy to be more Italy again. Good luck. Spain is kind of trying to go in that direction. You're trying to pull out of this commitment to bring the refugees in. And Spain now is, I think Italy now is sending boats back. They're trying to send people back because on a local level, they're seeing that this is an experiment that has gone horribly wrong. Now, they've done deals with the EU, and they have mandates. They have mandates about how many people that they have to take in. They don't have any choice anymore. So this is what's taking place. And you have to say, well, why is that? Why are they doing this? And who is doing it? Well, it's still the same people that have been running the script from basically the 1300s on. It's the same people. And all along the way, they keep changing the socioeconomic topography of Europe in order to stay in power. And every time there is the potential for new information, new awareness, new exchange of ideas, it's the clampdown. They did it with the printing press. Right? This is what happened. They did it with the printing press. They knew the printing press was coming. They knew that there'd be a dissemination of ideas. Oh, of course, they would use the printing press to disseminate their ideas. That wouldn't be a problem. That would be a problem. Das Kapital, the Marxist Manifesto, you name it. Mein Kampf, plenty copies to be found. But they did the same thing with the rise of television and radio, which was World War II, clampdown. Here we have the internet. And the internet's pretty new. The internet's been around 20 years. Really. I mean, the inception of the internet goes back further than that. But we really started to use the internet in earnest around 1996. 96, 95, right around there. So 23 years old. So now the EU and the people behind the EU, the black nobility, are taking this destruction of the cultural. They've already destroyed and blurred the lines of the borders. Like there really are no borders anymore with the EU. Although go try and hang out in one of their countries for any given period of time and not have a visa or whatever, and we'll see how well the border thing works for you. But they've already done that. Now they've allowed this very volatile, intense group of mostly men from sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East into Western Europe. And so what they're doing now, they're doing it at such a rate that we're watching over the course of the next 15 to 20 years, because these people think in really long cycles, but just the absolute destruction of any cultural resemblance of what we thought of Europe or what Europe had. The cultural markers, the anchors, they'll be gone. When churches become mosques, and they will be, and I'm not an Islamophobe, I'm just telling you, and it's already happening, the history of those churches will be gone. Statues will be taken. I mean, there'll be a whole new, it will be an entirely different Europe. Still very controllable, though. Controllable in the early stages because there's chaos. And controllable afterwards because the people who have always run Europe, and to a large extent the rest of the world, don't give a shit about anybody except them, their bloodline, their offspring, and their divine right to rule this planet. That's just the way it is. There's no altruism involved. And so if they have to have another planned demolition of Europe, they will, because they'll still be on top. Watch the movie Children of Men. Watch Children of Men with Clive Owen. That is the future of Europe. It's the future of Europe. And there's a scene in Children of Men where Clive Owen goes to meet with his uncle to ask him a favor and get papers for a certain operation that he's doing. I'm not talking an operation like but an operation that involves people, moving people around, stuff like that. And he goes to see his uncle, and you've been indoctrinated in this movie. It's a brilliant movie, by the way. Been indoctrinated in this movie, and it's all dystopian. It's really dystopian. Nobody can have babies anymore. It's dark. People are trying to just, find a purpose to keep going. They're still going to work, but it's very, like, reality's really slippery. And when he goes to go see his uncle, he goes behind this gated sort of world. And it's all still jolly old England behind this gated world that he's been allowed access to. And he hangs out with his uncle who still believes in empire, and he still believes in all these things that made up this fairy tale of what being England was. It's fascinating to watch. And that's kind of where they're headed. That's the model. And they're basically introducing this social pathogen, or social enzyme, a radical social enzyme that essentially eats up the remnants of the last 2,000 years of culture, because they think they can stay on top of it and still run it. Why? Because they've been running things since 1300, maybe before then anyway. So many of you, let's bring this to the present moment in time. Many of you have received in your inboxes new terms and conditions from almost every website that you belong to. Whether it's a website that's just an e-com site, or whether it's a website that is involved with social media. There are new terms and conditions. Where did those terms and conditions come from? They came from the EU. The EU decided, we're just going to slap down a bunch of terms and conditions for the internet, and this is what you're going to have. It's all about privacy and keeping your information. And well, embedded in those terms and conditions, especially with the social media sites like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there are bullet points in there about hate speech. And there are bullet points in there about harassment and bullying. And if you agreed to those T&Cs, in many cases you could not use a website or you could not use an app unless you did, you now agreed to those conditions. And they were drafted out of Europe. They were drafted by the EU. And is there any coincidence? Is there any coincidence that Alex Jones and some of the other websites, Jay Dyer, got taken down? That WordPress decided to, get really proactive and start shutting these sites down? No. There's no coincidence, because now they had the legal language in place that allowed them to do that. Well, that was step one. Step two is right in front of us. And I'm going to read you something from boingboing.net. And this is the headline. The author is Cory Doctorow, who I think might be E.L. Doctorow's son. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the case. Maybe it's his grandson. 6 days until the EU votes on an extinction-level event for the internet. Here's what they'll debate. In 6 days, the EU will debate and vote on a pair of copyright regulations that constitute an extinction-level event for the internet. Censorship machines. Article 13, foreseeing all user-generated text, video, photos, code, etc., through copyright filters that anyone can add anything to. Anything judged to be a copyrighted work is automatically censored. If they believe that you have a copyrighted work, you will be censored. Think about that. And the definition of copyright is going to be loosey-goosey. Then there is the link tax. Users are banned from linking to news stories unless the site they're linking to has sold a linking tax to the platform that the users are on.